Hi, welcome to Infusion Health, the podcast. I'm comedian Chris Patrick, a.k.a. self-proclaimed power man. And I'm here with my co-host and significant other, Rach.
Hey, guys.
Now, today we have an interesting, we got Richard West, who's a relationship and communications coach, and he's calling in from the great country of Austria, a city of Linz, Austria. I promise there's not going to be any Sound of Music jokes now. So can't wait to have him on and start talking about intimacy and what men need more as far as intimate are. I'm going to let him explain. I don't think I'm doing it justice. Am I right?
No.
And
so the best way to explain it is that we're going to take it from the male side of how to connect for a male to connect to a woman instead of those one-night stands and all that, how to turn it into a relationship and actually talk about what you want in the bedroom and have that open communication, the spiritual communication. Anyways, bring him on.
Well, I don't think I can talk about what I want in the bedroom in 30 minutes. That's going to be about it.
Well, I don't want it X-rated either, okay. But if you bring it on, we can start talking about this.
So can we tell the audience about your leg, or should we? Okay, Richard. Without further ado, Richard, welcome to the show.
Hello. Hello. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, it's great having you on, especially from Austria. Now, you're a relationship communication coach. Can you kind of give us an overview of what that is, or what you do?
Sure. So, my approach is that I facilitate self-awareness in communication, which means making people aware of when they're disempowering themselves through the language that they use, mm-hmm. and communicating things like boundaries, needs, being aware of the other person's too. And how you can communicate this in a clear way, which really represents your inner feelings, your inner self, in a way that doesn't, get mixed up in this very clunky way that we have of expressing, which is language.
So, you said about clunky way. What exactly would it be an example of a clunky way?
Well, spoken language, is a very small part of the way that we communicate.
Okay.
So, I expect you will have experienced, for example, when you write messages to people, that the interpretation of the meaning of that message can often be slightly off from what you may have meant. Mm-hmm. So there's so much more to communication than just words.
Right.
There's the feelings that come behind it, and all of this.
What I usually tell Chris, it's also in the tone. So, if you say hello, what you having to eat, it's a simple phrase, but if you say it in an angry tone, then you're not caring what they're eating.
Right, yes. And what I teach is that actually communication is a lot more about the energy behind the words than the words themselves. Mm. So if we can become aware of the energy and feelings that we're putting forward in the way that we communicate, and also become aware of what's behind other people's words, then this can make our communication with each other a lot clearer and easier to understand.
Okay, do you think we've lost some of that, especially in today's electronic with today's texting age? Everybody's texting everything. Do you think we've lost
texting, DMs, all that? Yeah, I think so.
Do you think we've lost some type of intimacy there or something like that?
I think so, yes. I think so, because we rely very much on this kind of fast, hit me with a couple of sentences and then move on, and emojis have done a lot of, they've helped a lot in this sense to kind of bring a kind of a feeling across in the way we communicate in a digital way. But there really, really is no replacement in comparison to communicating with somebody face to face.
Right.
Well, see, the thing with me is that one of the things I found out with texting, like I remember my nephew was texting me one time, and I couldn't read it. I was like, "What is this?" And instead of saying "trying to," he said "Tryna," Tryna. And I'm like, "Tryna,"
Right.
and I'm like, "Oh."
Right.
So what it's forced me to do is really go back to basic English. So I'm using my quotations more now, and I'm using my question marks and my exclamation points and all that, trying to get people whenever I send a text for people to actually understand what I'm saying, and checking my spelling. Well, I'm not a great speller, but checking my spelling. And it's really, really brought me back to basic English, because I'm like, I don't get what they're saying. I don't get what this means,
But I think there's also like our children's generation where everything is abbreviated and you need to figure out what the abbreviations mean. And sometimes people are just communicating with emojis.
Right. And I haven't figured all that language out yet either. It's quite, yeah. But it is like a language, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can, I mean, here in Austria, there are so many different dialects, and from one side of Austria, if somebody speaks to somebody from another part of Austria, they won't understand each other, even though they're speaking the same language.
Right.
So that's where the importance of being able to communicate in other ways and being able to read things like people's body language and being able to ask when you don't understand these kind of things. That's when those things become really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well let's get back to in a relationship, because there are times when me and Rachel we're talking and we're communicating really good, and then there's times when she wants to rip my head off.
I'm a sweet angel. What are you talking about?
Yeah. The only problem with that is when she's a sweet angel, there's never I know when she's going to be on the other side of the track, on the dark side, like, oh my God, she's, and it's unpredictable.
But let's talk about your side of it, right? Sometimes, and it goes back to your tone, you didn't mean it intentionally in a wrong way, but because of your tone, I took it in a wrong sense, right? Like, leave me alone right now. And it's like, that's such a broad, vague, what are you going through in that moment? That do you want me to leave you alone because did I do something to offend you? Or are you just frustrated with something and you can't handle that conversation with me in that moment?
Well, when I say leave me alone, it just means leave me alone.
But as a female, I interpreted, does he want me to leave him alone all day? Is it something that I did? Is it something that happened in his situation? Has nothing to do with me? And so, that can trigger another person, female, male, whatever you want to call it in the LGBT community, as they want nothing to do with me. And that's when you say something so vague and without explanation, and people are offended. And then with that offense, they start getting angry or they shut down.
Well, I think you're overthinking it. When I say leave me alone right now, just leave me alone right now. I'll talk to you in a few minutes, in an hour or so, but just leave me alone right now. I think you're overanalyzing. What do you think, Rich?
Well, first of all, I think that conflict in relationships is completely normal and healthy. Mm-hmm. So it all depends on how we approach these things. And so if somebody says something like, well, I just want to be left alone right now, leave me alone. I mean, they're expressing an authentic need. Mm-hmm. to have some personal space, which is a very healthy thing in a relationship.
Uh-huh.
And of course, because we're expressing in this kind of limited framework of words, and in this moment, people can't read what's really going on underneath, and so it's very easily that it triggers things in other people. So if you get told "leave me alone now," as Rach expressed, that can be interpreted in many different ways, and one of the things that I find really, really important in communication and relationships in general is to always take responsibility for one's own feelings. So 95, or let's say 99% of the time, if somebody says something to you that triggers a response, a painful emotion, that pain will already be there inside of you, and all they've done is create a situation where that pain comes to the surface. Yeah. So if we take full responsibility for our own triggers, then that goes a long way in not then misinterpreting somebody else's words and taking offense to that because you realize that, okay, they've got their thing going on and I've got my thing going on, and this is coming up in me, and now it's my responsibility to deal with this and express it.
So my question
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. So my question is, when we're communicating, and take masculinity and just turn it to either sex, right? Because some women are taught, do not share your feelings, hold it in, because of the family dynamics they grow up in. And that's more of a, old school knowledge of, okay, that's more masculine talk. Don't express yourself. Don't talk about it. Don't, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's when people get told that, it's a protection mechanism because you want to protect yourself and others from experiencing pain. And of course, this can happen with both men and women. It's my perspective that both men and women have masculine and feminine energies within them. So men are usually having a stronger masculine, and women are usually having a stronger feminine. But yeah.
So how do you
being told?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So how do you get, not necessarily change the person, because you can't change a person; they have to want to change. But how do you get those lines of masculine communication open to have a free conversation? Hey guys, we'll be right back. Sit tight.
So you want to get in shape, but you don't have time for the gym. Don't worry, I got you covered. Hey, I'm Todd McCullough, former University of Florida football player and creator of the Team Act 20 workout. The Team Act 20 workout is a 20-minute home workout program, no equipment needed. We have beginner and advanced workouts. And the best part is each workout ends with a meditation and prayer. So if you're looking to lose weight, get stronger, and develop a consistent workout routine, I want to offer you 10 free days of our 20-minute home workouts. No credit card is required. Just click the link in the show notes to get your 10 free days. And remember, you can no longer use the excuse you don't have time to work out.
Right. So there's two very important tools to soften the masculine. And the first one is empathy. So, which would be, we could say, a very feminine trait. So the masculine can be very much softened when we show empathy, when we say, okay, yeah, no, I understand that might have caused you pain. And the second tool that we can use is to ask questions.
Right.
Open questions can be extremely powerful because it gets somebody expressing. If of course they're willing to express, because sometimes people just don't want to communicate, and that's okay. But if there is a willingness there, but maybe a bit of resistance because of previous experience, then just showing a soft understanding and asking a question can very often break that resistance down.
Well, sometimes like with me and Rach, is like there could be something bothering her, and it's like, well, what's wrong? And she doesn't want to say anything, and I feel like we're in a dark room with a light over, like I got to interrogate her. And this just got to the point to where, and I'm not going to interrogate you. When you want to talk, I'm here, just I'll leave you alone. And, but I'm not going to try and force it out of you. When you're ready to talk, I'm here, then I just go on and do my own thing, until she's ready to talk.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's all we can do as partners is to be there in whatever our partner needs at the time, and to trust them as well, that they will come through this process, and that they will be in a place to communicate it at some point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's also important to be open when they are ready to talk, to listen. Because like I was saying earlier, I grew up in an abusive home. I was the eldest, and my parents put me in the role of a third parent. So I wasn't able to openly express my feelings. And in my first marriage, he would chase after me to get what he wanted, to get me to open up. And that just triggered me even more to shut down.
Right. Yeah. So this is also a masculine trait, to try and insert yourself into the situation and control it. So that's what the masculine can do, is to come in and say, I really want this to happen. Why isn't it happening? And of course that represents his own needs, but it's expressed in a very controlling way.
Right.
And so if there's somebody in a relationship with a very strong masculine energy, it can be very helpful to be aware of the feminine inside as well, which can support that masculine expression. Yeah. So to apply a little bit more empathy, I like the term empathy sandwich. Right. So you start with empathy, and then you give your opinion or your need or your question, whatever is right in the moment, and then you finish with empathy again.
Right.
Okay. Well, with me, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and back in the day, growing up, it was a thing for me that, if we played back in the day when kids used to go outside, we used to play football, baseball, and all that. But if you got hurt, and you started crying, the other guys would make fun of you, like, oh, you're being a wimp. So I learned growing up through that is not to be, not to cry, not to show this emotion, that you got to be, that I guess you got to be tough. You got to be tough, to just tough it out. And I've heard that a lot. You just got to tough it out. So I've learned to just tough it out and just move on to the next thing. But that's made me a lot more masculine in the thinking, as far as, yeah, well, that's a problem. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. I'm going to move on,
Right. Yeah. And the masculine energy of solving problems and directness can be very useful in these situations. But if the feminine side of not acknowledging your emotions, if that's ignored, then then very often that leads to just kind of plowing through a situation without taking into account the wider perspective of okay, what are other people's feelings in this and that kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of people get taught that because well, again, it's a way of protecting ourselves from experiencing pain. It's because the masculine is very direct and it doesn't it can bypass that pain quite easily, you know.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you know, with Rach, she's like, you know, because with one of our youngest sons, you know, he's like crying and all that. I'm like, what are you gonna sit? You gonna sit here cry? You gonna do something about it? You know, don't sit there crying like a wimp, you know. And she's like, why would you say that to him? It's like, that's the way I grew up, you know. Crying was a sign of weakness, you know. You're gonna sit there and cry, or you're gonna move on, you know.
Right.
The basic. Quit crying like a girl, Chrissy. You know, and it's like, no, I can't cry. You know. Right.
Yeah. So in these situations, it's important to recognize when you might be projecting your own coping mechanisms onto other people. You know, because if you're not comfortable with feeling your emotion and then you project that onto somebody else. But on the other hand, if you feel to bring the masculine energy to the situation, if Rach is upset, then that can be a very helpful thing too, if applied in the right way. You know, if somebody is feeling very emotional and really feeling that, then that's okay. But then at some point, a more direct and focused energy needs to be applied to the situation as well. The key is knowing when to come in with that, you know, to allow the feelings, and then at some point you come in with that more masculine energy.
So my question, pushing this forward a little bit because we're only got so much time left. For people that are starting a relationship, not a one-night stand, a relationship, how do they start the communications of what they want in the bedroom? Because some people like it soft, some people like BDSM. I'm just going to throw it out there. And some people want the man on top all the time, and sometimes they want the women on top all the time. So now that you've went on your couple dates and you're ready for that, do you have a conversation before it, or do you have a conversation
during?
Right, yeah. I mean, obviously, physical intimacy can be a very vulnerable situation for people, especially if they're just getting to know each other. So, my perspective is that communication is very important as people get to know each other. Especially around the issue of consent. You know, as you get to know somebody in a relationship over years, then you get to know what they like and dislike and how they are. So communication tends to become more automatic and intuitive. But right in the beginning of the relationship, it's a lot more important to you know, really sit down with somebody and say, right, you know, this is what I like. You know, can I do this? Is that okay for you? And that can be done beforehand. It can be done during, and it can be done afterwards. Sure. You know, there's no right or wrong way to approach it there. It's just to be fairly clear in the communication at that point.
Okay, well, when me and Rach started dating, we actually started dating long distance. She lived about 2.5 hours away from me, and she moved when she moved to Minneapolis, where I live in the city. We were talking on the phone. We actually started dating over the phone, and I said to her, I said, okay, well, intimate wise, what do you like? So we had this conversation. So when we were first time intimate, I knew what she liked and she knew what I liked. I mean, we weren't perfect, but as time goes on and you start to figure out what each one of you are into, then it starts to get better. Then you're like, okay, now we're on a routine. Now we're like,
Right, exactly. Yeah. In physical intimacy, just like conversations can be a little bit clumsy at the beginning of a relationship, right? But as you get to know each other, then you can intuitively sense what another person might want or need, and also how they can pleasure you as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I've had female friends and I was like, yeah, she's like, well, I was with, so-and-so the other day. And I'm like, oh, really? Well, did he, she's like, well, yeah. She goes, well, I usually tell him. I said, yeah, well, I've talked to some guys where some of my female friends like, well, he didn't do this. He didn't do this. I said, well, did you tell him? Well, no, he should know. Well, how is he supposed to know what you like?
Right.
It kind of reminds me of that song, Pina Colada.
The Pina Colada song.
Yeah.
Well, it's called it's called Escape, the Pina Colada song. What happened when he made the song? It was actually called Escape, but everybody was, hey, can you play that song about the Pina Colada? So it's Escape, the Pina Colada song by Rupert Holmes.
And it was, and for the people that don't know, it's about a couple that put out an ad because they want something else more in their relationship, but they never had that communication.
Right.
So.
Right.
Too bad we didn't get a sample.
Yeah.
Then we got to pay for the licensing of
it. Yeah. And I read and I hear a lot of other coaches even out there saying that it's a man's responsibility to awaken fire, for example, or that it's a man's responsibility to be assertive or do certain things in the bedroom.
Right.
But that can put a lot of pressure on the man when there's no communication involved.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just an expectation, Now, if a woman says to a man, I really feel like receiving today, can you do this or this kind of thing, and then leave the man to thrive in his masculine energy, then that's okay, because that involves the communication.
I feel with me and Rach, and I'm not going to get graphic, but we have kids in the home, and let's just say sometimes with the kids in the home, I feel that can't get
the level that you want to be at.
Can't get wild and crazy because like, dang, the kids are home.
Right.
Wish I could kick them out the house or all that, or let's go get a hotel room or something like that where we could be a little bit more uninhibited.
Yeah, and I know exactly how that feels. I've got 2 kids myself.
Well, there is one time that you told me that before me, of course, that you had you were sleeping over at the girl's house, and then the kids jumped in the bed afterwards.
No, that was a different story to that.
But my point is to know that when you're dating somebody and you have kids. Not to really have the communication with the kids, but say, we might be doing things that you guys might not appreciate, but it's the way we connect. I think sexuality has gotten to a point where it's so hush what we do in the bedroom, no matter where we are in the spectrum, that it's okay to allow our kids to understand that it's just a part of communicating, a way of connecting to each other.
Right, and there's ways of expressing sexuality to each other which are more kid friendly as well. Just giving your partner a massage or kissing them. It shows it's physical intimacy, but without the X-rated the X-rated kind of.
Well, when I first went to see Rach, again, she lived 2 hours away. When I first went to see her, I said, okay, well, the kids are there. And I said, well, we're not going to sleep together because I don't want to do that in front of the kids. So, I was sleeping in the boys' room on a separate bed. And then, their uncle wasn't married to his wife at the time. And they go, are they, and the kids actually said, they go, are they married? And Rachel said, no. She goes, well, how come they sleep together? And she goes, well, they're getting close to getting married. And, she goes, well, how come you and Cris don't sleep together? She goes, well, Cris didn't want to do that in front of you guys because he wanted to respect you guys. She goes, well, no, we know Cris. We know you guys. Fine, sleep. So the kids actually said, yeah, you guys can sleep together.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's always been my experience that kids know a lot more than we give them credit for.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But another question I got to ask you before we get going is with Generation Z, there's a lot of texting, a lot of texting, a lot of people on their cell phones, and I've even told my kids, as I said, the thing is that you guys go hang out at a coffee shop, you go somewhere, everybody pulls their phones out and starts texting and playing on their phones. I go, what I think we've lost is that communication. It's like, talk to each other, find out what each other wants. Talk. I'm not
Absolutely.
as far, but have a conversation. When me and my friends used to go to like a fast food restaurant, we'd all sat there, we all started talking and laughing and junk like that. Everybody's sitting there with their phones out.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We're reducing the communication to this very limited form. So we become so dependent on that the other ways of communication or reading people's communication get lost. So the Generation Z they're not reading people's body language so easily as previous generations. There's not such an ease of communication in that, and empathy. That gets lost to a certain degree as well.
And that's the thing too with dating. I mean, I always think, God, I'm glad I'm not dating right now because, you meet girls and you get their phone number and you call them up and they're like, well, and they say something like, well, I don't like to talk on the phone, but I'll text. It's like, text? It's a phone.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that we're losing this communication between people because like my son, like I'll be at the mall with him. Oh, I go, well, go talk to her. And he like freaks out. I was like, just go over there and talk to her. Say hi.
Yeah.
But
right.
But with this generation, are we losing this communication?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I experience it myself. I'm quite introverted in nature, so texting is the comfortable option.
Right.
But when you get dependent on that, that's when it becomes a problem.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're seeing with the new generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been a great, interesting conversation. Talking my favorite subject, intimacy. So, Rich, if people want to learn more about relationships, communications with their relationship, you got a website or a place they can get a hold of you or email you or whatever?
Yeah. You can go to www.partingthewaves.com. That's my website.
Parting the Waves?
Parting the Waves.
Waves
as in VES.
Okay, all right. And he'll text that to me and I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. It will definitely be in the show notes. So if you got any things or you got any questions or anything in your relationship or how to make your relationship better, or communications in your relationship, definitely seek out and reach out to Rich, and I'll let Rach close us out.
All right, you guys, if you like what you heard, please subscribe and tell others. And we're going to do the show closing like we always do. History is born on lines of hate. On here, we're trying to build lines of love, even if it's love with each other. You guys have a great one.
Take it easy.